Your team can't read your mind. Why clear systems and expectations matter. Hey Tradies, welcome back to the Hey Tradies podcast. Today I wanted to talk to you about something I've seen throughout my entire career, and I still see it happening with clients today. And that is business owners getting frustrated because their team isn't doing something the way they expected them to. The timesheets aren't detailed enough. Someone hasn't completed the vehicle check. A job has run over and nobody told the office. The van hasn't been cleaned. The job checklist hasn't been completed. And eventually the business owner says something along the lines of, but they should know this. Or my personal favorite, it's common sense. I know that one because I've said it myself. But here's the problem. Your team can't read your mind. You might have been doing this for 20 years. You know exactly what a good job looks like. You know what information the office needs. You know how you expect someone to talk to a customer. You know what should happen when a job starts running over. But unless you've actually explained those expectations to your team, how are they supposed to know? So today we're talking about expectations, onboarding, systems, and SOPs. And before you think I'm about how you need to spend the next 6 months writing a 300-page operations manual, I'm absolutely not. This can be simpler than you think. One of the biggest examples I've seen over my career is onboarding. Someone hires a new tradie or apprentice and they turn up on Monday morning. They get introduced to everyone. They've shown the van, they get a 15-minute rundown on Fergus, and maybe they're told a few things about how the business works. And then off you go. See you later. Then 3 weeks later, the business owner is frustrated because this person isn't doing things correctly. But did they actually teach them? Think about everything a new employee might need to understand. How do we complete our timesheets? When are timesheets due? What does a good timesheet description actually look like? What are the expectations on a charge-up job? What happens if a job is going to take longer than it's scheduled? Who do they contact? How do they contact them? How often should their van be cleaned? When do vehicle checks happen? What checklists need completing? What photos need taking? How do we speak to customers? And what happens when we've finished a job? None of those things are automatically obvious. They're obvious to you, but you've been doing them for years. There's a difference, but it's common sense. This is something I've really had to change my own thinking around. I used to say, but it's just common sense. Except whose common sense? Every single person comes into your business with completely different life experiences. You might have one apprentice who grew up on a farm. From the time they could walk, they were helping mum and dad. They've driven machinery. They've fixed things. They know tools need to be cleaned and put away. They've learned to look around and figure out what needs doing next. And then you've got a 17-year-old who's grown up in the city and has barely had to pack the dishwasher. Those two apprentices might be exactly the same age. They could both be intelligent. They could both have a fantastic attitude, but they're starting from completely different places. You can't compare their common sense. If nobody has ever taught somebody something, how are they supposed to know it? That's where systems become important. Show people what good looks like. I genuinely believe most employees want to do a good job, but as the business owner, you've got to tell them what good actually looks like in your business. And don't just tell them once. Document it so they've got somewhere to go back to. This is especially important when they are new, because think about how much information you're giving someone during their first week. New names, new customers, new software, new processes, new vehicles, new tools, new expectations. They are not going to remember everything you told them during a 15-minute conversation on Monday morning. So give them a reference point. SOPs don't have to mean 100 pages. Now let's talk about SOPs, standard operating procedures. Even saying it sounds very corporate, but please don't overcomplicate this. An SOP doesn't have to be a beautifully designed 20-page document. In fact, please don't make it that, because nobody is going to read it. Write it in super plain English. Write it so that a fair apprentice could understand it, and use different ways of explaining things. Maybe there's a short written checklist, photos, screenshots, a quick video, links to existing training, step-by-step instructions, an explanation of why you're doing it. You could literally have a 30-second video showing someone how a particular piece of equipment needs to be maintained. For Fergus, you might link directly to a training video or create your own quick video showing exactly how your business wants the team using Fergus Go. The important thing is that there's a clear start and finish. When this happens, here's what we do. That's a process. Make it easy to find. There's no point creating fantastic SOPs if nobody knows where they are. Or worse, they're sitting in a folder somewhere in the office computer and the team is out on site. Whatever platform you use needs to be really easy to access from a phone. When you're starting out, a Word document is absolutely fine. You don't need fancy software, but as you grow, you might want somewhere everything can live together. Our preference is often a Google site because you can create something really simple that the team can access. If you're already in the Microsoft world, you might use SharePoint. It doesn't really matter what you use. What matters is that your team knows. If I'm not sure how we do something, this is where I go. And that should be part of their induction. Explain the why. This is probably one of the biggest things for me. Don't just tell people what you want them to do, tell them why. If all you say to a tradesperson is your timesheet needs better descriptions, that probably just sounds like the office is being painful. But what if I explain the description you're writing here gets pulled through to the customer invoice? Now it has context. The customer needs to be able to understand what they are paying for. Office needs enough information to invoice the job without coming back to you with 5 questions. So instead of 2 hours fixed leak, maybe your business has an example of what a good description looks like. What did you investigate? What did you find? What work did you complete? Were there parts or equipment used that the office needs to know about? Was the machine used for 3 hours that needs charging? Is there follow-up work required? Now the tradesperson understands what information is needed and why. And here's the other side of it. This isn't only about making the office life easier. Your field team doesn't want 5 phone calls the next morning asking, what did you do here? How long did you use this machine? Did you supply this? Do we need to go back? That's frustrating for everybody. A good system removes those questions. Explain it, show it, document it, check it, improve it. There's a really simple framework you can use for this. Explain it. Tell the person what needs to happen and, importantly, why. Show it. Don't assume telling someone once means they understand. Actually show them what good looks like. Document it. Give them something to refer back to. Check it, especially when they're new. Check that the process is actually being followed and understood. Improve it, because your first process probably won't be perfect, and that's okay. Explain it, show it, document it, check it, improve it. That's it. The first version doesn't need to be perfect. I think this is where business owners get stuck. They think we need to document our systems, and suddenly it becomes an enormous project. Don't do that. Document what you're doing right now. That's version 1. It doesn't have to be the perfect process. Get the current processes out of your head and onto paper and improve it. Here's another really important point. The business owner doesn't need to write every SOP. Actually, in many cases, I would rather the person doing the job every day document it. Get them to explain exactly what they do. Then review it together. You might realize, why are you doing that step? And they might say, I don't know. That's the way I've always done it. Great. Now you've found something you can improve. Use the tools you already have. And documenting this stuff is easier than ever before. You can literally open up ChatGPT or Claude on your phone and talk. Say, I need to document our process for completing a charge-up plumbing job. Ask me questions so I can turn it into an SOP. And then talk what happens. You don't have to start with a blank Word document trying to write a corporate procedure. Use the tools available to get what's in your head out of your head. Then review it. Make sure it's accurate and make sure it actually sounds like your business and give it to the team. Start with the customer journey. If you currently have nothing documented, here's where I'd start. Grab a piece of paper and map the journey from inquiry, job, invoice, payment. What happens when an inquiry comes in? Who responds? What information do we need to collect? How does it become a quote? Who follows up? What happens when it's accepted? How is it scheduled? What does the tradesperson need before arriving? What needs to happen on site? What happens when a job runs over? What happens when the job is finished? Who invoices? When does the invoice go out? Who follows up if it isn't paid? That's the backbone of your business. You don't have to document it all this weekend. Pick one part, set aside an hour every week, and start chipping away. Systems don't remove accountability. Now, I also want to make something really clear. Having systems doesn't mean your team suddenly isn't responsible for anything. Actually, good systems make accountability much easier. As the business owner, you have a responsibility to clearly communicate your expectations. You need to provide training. You need to provide the tools. You need to explain what good looks like. You need to make sure that the process is actually realistic for the person doing the job. But once you've done that, your team has a responsibility to follow it. And when they don't, you need to address it, not 6 months later when you're absolutely fed up and you've got a list of 20 things they've done wrong. Address it when it happens. It doesn't have to be a massive conversation. Sometimes it simply needs what I call a performance nudge. It might say something like this. Hey, I noticed on the Smith job yesterday you didn't follow our installation process and step 2 of the checklist was missed. My expectations is that you follow this process every installation. The impact of missing that step is if something fails, we potentially have to send someone back to the customer's property. And that's time and money we can't necessarily charge the customer, and it affects their experience with us. So, what are you going to do differently next time to make sure that you meet that expectations? And then stop talking. Give them the opportunity to answer, because I think that last question is really important. Not do you understand, because they're probably going to say yes. Ask, what are you going to do to meet that expectations next time? Now you've put some ownership back. A team member, I rushed the checklist. Okay, why? Maybe the checklist isn't easy to access. Maybe they simply forgot. Maybe they don't understand one of the steps. Maybe they made a conscious decision not to follow it. Those are very different problems, and you need to know which one you're dealing with. Look at the system first. If the same step keeps getting missed by multiple people, I'd also be looking at the system, because if 5 people are getting step 4 wrong, maybe you've got 5 terrible employees. But there's also a pretty good chance that step 4 isn't clear enough. That's where you go back to explain it, show it, document it, check it, improve it. Fix the process if the process is broken. But if the process works, the employee has been trained, they understand the expectation, and they are simply choosing not to follow it, then that's no longer a systems problem. It's a performance issue. And you need to be prepared to manage that too. Explain the impact. I also think this is why explaining the impact is important. Don't just say you didn't come to the checklist. So what? Why does anybody care? Instead, you've missed this step. Because it was missed, we've had to send another tradesperson back to the property. That took 2 hours that we couldn't charge for. We also had another customer waiting because we had to move their job. And now the office has had to deal with the callback. Now they can see the domino effect. One misstep doesn't just affect them. It affects the customer, it affects the office, it affects the schedule, and it affects the next customer. Ultimately, it affects the profitability of the business. And that's why the process exists. Clear expectations are actually fairer. And I think this is something business owners sometimes miss. Clear systems aren't about micromanaging people. They're actually fairer for your team because everybody knows what's expected. You're not moving the goalposts. You're not getting angry with someone for something you've never actually told them. You're able to say, here's the process. We trained you on it. Here's where you find it. This is the expectation. This is what happened and this is the impact. What are you going to do differently? That's a completely different conversation from, God's sakes, why didn't you do it properly? One is accountability, the other builds frustration. And ultimately, I think most employees want to do a good job. Our responsibility as business owners is to make what a good job looks like really bloody clear. And then their responsibility is to deliver it. Your systems should change. Your processes aren't set in concrete. Things change. Technology changes. Your business changes. Your team finds better ways of doing things. Some processes might only need reviewing once a year. Others might change every few months. That's fine. Your team should be encouraged to say, this doesn't work anymore, or I think there's a faster way. System shouldn't exist because Amanda wrote it in 2019 and nobody is allowed to touch it. It's there to help the business operate consistently. If it's broken, fix the system. What happens when someone isn't there? And here's where this becomes bigger than timesheets and van checks. What happens when your key person goes on holiday? What happens when your office manager is sick for 2 weeks? What happens if somebody suddenly leaves? Heaven forbid, what happens if someone gets hit by a bus? Does all of that knowledge disappear with them? Or can somebody else step in, and work out what needs to happen? And what about you? Can you go on holiday, properly go on holiday, without your phone constantly ringing because nobody knows what to do? Because ultimately, we're trying to build a business that doesn't need the owner touching every single thing. If you want to sell one day, even if selling your business feels miles away, think about this. What is someone actually buying? They're not just buying your vans, your tools, your customer list. They're buying a functioning business. Your team, your recurring customers, your reputation, your systems, your process, your intellectual property. They're buying something that can continue to operate when you walk out the door. If everything lives inside your head, what exactly are you selling? That's why documenting your business isn't just admin, it's building an asset. So here's what I want you to do this week. Don't try to document your entire business. Pick one process that causes frustration every week. Maybe it's timesheets. Maybe it's finishing jobs. Maybe it's vehicle checks. Maybe it's what happens when a job runs over. Maybe it's invoicing. Then use the framework. Explain it, show it, document it, check it, improve it. Write version 1. Even if it's just a single page in Word, then give it to someone in your team and ask, could you follow this without asking me what I mean? If the answer is no, keep improving. If you're sitting there thinking, Amanda, half of our business is still inside my head, it's exactly the kind of things we help tradies sort out. Whether it's a power hour to map out where your biggest bottlenecks are, helping you get Fergus working properly, or our monthly support where we become part of your team and help you create and improve systems behind the business. You don't have to document everything overnight. You just need to start getting it out of your head because your team genuinely can't read your mind. And the goal isn't for them to. The goal is to build a business where they don't need to. Catch you in the next episode. And if you got something out of today's episode, do me a favor and share it with another tradie. And if you're enjoying this podcast, a quick follow or rating on your favorite podcast app goes a long way. It helps more tradies find the show and get their business sorted.